When Ed McNally radioed me on the store walkie-talkie and summoned me to his office, I sensed my days at the Red Star were numbered. After 10-4ing Ed's request, I stuffed a pair of Vince Camuto heels into a box and left my battle station, the Macy's women's shoes department. During my time in women's shoes, I hadn't developed much outside of learning seasonal shoe trends and acquiring an almost necessary foot fetish. To survive here, you needed to cherish all 10 toes. Armed with a shoehorn and foot stocking, you had to know Steve Madden from Michael Kors, American Rag from Style & Co., flats and slides from Gladiator sandals and pumps. I proceeded with my death march, past the powder-faced divas and cosmetics and the hip millennials and juniors, and up the escalator, winding through intimates and children's with my head down and my hands in my pockets until I finally reached the office of Ed McNally. His door was cracked open just enough to see the bright red carpet. So much blood had been spilled here. "Hey, how are ya?" Ed said rhetorically, with his usual Midwest twang, even though he was from New York. I knew his gleeful greeting was the sweet rainbow sprinkles on top of a devastation sundae. The large manila envelope on his desk spoke volumes. He didn't need to say another word. "Well, this isn't my favorite thing to do, but we've decided to let you go." Let go. It took some time to process, to let go of my letting go. Retail wasn't my calling. I knew that when I applied at the on-campus career fair, but this was still my first job out of college, the difference between living independently within driving distance of my longtime girlfriend and packing up to move into mom's one-bedroom apartment 2 hours away. Macy's was the only planet I knew in this perilous, pitch-black, post-grad solar system. What else was out there? I drifted back to 11 months earlier, when I was a twinkling young upstart in the Macy's constellation. I remembered arriving early on my first day, like any promising lad entering the esteemed management trainee program, donning a navy blue pinstriped Tommy Hilfiger suit with a powdered blue dress shirt and a presidential red and blue striped tie, foreshadow of the blues yet to come. I didn't know mall doors could open before 10 a.m., before the steel gates were lifted to reveal colorful window displays and fashionable mannequins. That elderly folks, probably Macy's shoppers, power walk through the mall in their off-brand running shoes for exercise, some starting as early as 6 a.m. Mall employees called them walkers. They robotically marched around and around like tired cells in a dying organism. When the rest of the Macy's managers arrived at the store, I met San, my management trainee mentor, for the first time. He was a sharply dressed, 30-ish Filipino man with a Windexed bald head. He unnicely said, "Nice to meet you," without shaking my hand, and then read through his daily sales reports. San's stale disposition, marked by prolonged silences and dirty, hairy death stares, contradicted the swanky outfits he pieced together. Even with his colorful Kenneth Cole reaction shirts and Ralph Lauren bow ties and clubroom suspenders and snazzy Cole Haan shoes, San was no different than Christopher Walken at the end of Deer Hunter, a mushy-brained, battle-scarred, zombified Macy's puppet with one in the chamber at all times. Had retail lobotomized San bit by bit and reduced him to a dead man walking? One thing was certain. I needed this job to stay afloat, but I wouldn't stick around long enough to become San 2.0. I kept my wits by visiting other departments. I lounged on the Rainier sectional couches and furniture, ran my hands through Martha Stewart duvet covers and home, smelled Origins scented candles and housewares, listened to the Shiseido cosmeticians describe their latest concealer. I often left the store altogether to grab an Orange Julius or Wetzel's pretzel, if only to escape the constant loop of Hall & Oates, Fleetwood Mac, Madonna, and Dolly Parton. As the months slogged along, I felt increasingly empty inside, like Macy's on an idle Tuesday morning. I applied for other jobs, stopped wearing blazers, crazily air guitared Edge of 17, air banjoed Coat of Many Colors, and air cowbell Don't Fear the Reaper in front of customers. Ed McNally, no less artificial than Wetzel's pretzel cheese dip, pretended like he wasn't gathering a list of fireable offenses, but I knew I was a marked man. My credit card sales were in the dumps. I got duped by a fraudulent Joe's Jeans return. Ed didn't like how I folded shirts or tied my ties. A black customer in women's shoes said she was followed by an associate, and pointed to the broader issue of racial profiling. To Ed's chagrin, I agreed with her. Ed dinged me for drinking a Starbucks double shot at the morning store rally, citing it as unprofessional. The same store rallies where Ed once joked about another manager not having a college degree, where we waterboarded excitement out of the associates at 9 a.m. to the tune of Pharrell's Happy. And then, once my laundry list of unprofessionalisms outgrew its hamper, my brief stint at the Red Star had finally reached supernova. I would soon be a jobless 20-something surviving on Michelin's TV dinners and paid research studies, stripped of my posh 40K annual salary, long removed from the loving, reassuring arms of Father FAFSA. Ed continued reading his termination script. Nothing personal, it's just not a good fit. I was light years ahead, calculating the money I had stashed, hatching a plan to avoid moving back home, opening and closing my fists, noticing how conveniently small Ed's neck was. I long suspected Ed was a down-stuffed corporate dummy or state-of-the-art cyborg from a dystopian retail future. Perhaps even otherworldly, the way he mockingly shouted, "Hallelujah!" when sales boomed, then stomped through the store on slow days, sniffing for scapegoats, habitually shuffling his feet as if irked by infernal coals. The devil didn't only wear Prada, it seemed. Sometimes he donned a Three Peaks Ralph Lauren suit with a Macy's name tag melted into his lapel. The store's HR manager, a pale, older version of Wednesday from the Addams Family, entered the room and slid an unemployment pamphlet across Ed's desk. The blue-tinted brochure featured a middle-aged man, presumably getting fired, smiling as if he were just promoted. Ed ended his closing remarks by pointing out my most dishonorable transgression against Macy's. "I've spoken to your associates, and they told me that it feels like you're one of them." "Why is that bad exactly?" I countered. I can act like I breathe the same air as my team and still have their respect. "No one has come up here and told me that they like working with you or respect you as a leader," said Wednesday. She wasn't worth my syllables, but I couldn't help myself. "With all due disrespect, you're here for 2 days a week, for a few hours. Hardly anyone knows your name or where your office is. After someone gets off work or clocks out for their break, do you really think they want to come all the way up here and talk to you about how great their manager is?" I placed my Macy's name badge on Ed's desk like a suspended cop and rose to my feet. I felt like a boss. I'd feel mega boss in a few weeks after discovering the ecstasy of fun employment. It turns out unemployment insurance and focus group checks can be quite lucrative, frozen dinners quite tasty, and student calling centers abhor out-of-work alums. Getting fired was more ignition than incineration, a singed awakening. I would later embrace my gorilla marks and the realization that 9-to-5 martyrdom is far scarier than post-grad joblessness. "What do you want us to tell your team? That you decided to leave the company?" I chuckled at Ed's question. Clearly, I was dreadfully nervous about the rumblings in the women's shoes department the next morning. You can tell them I went out with a fight. I was nearly out the door when Ed muttered one more, seemingly unnecessary remark. "Again, no hard feelings. This job just requires a certain amount of common sense." I turned around and responded, "You know what? You're absolutely right."